Hey, it's me. So, the creative life. What's that about? I have lived a creative life for a long time. So, I'm not going to talk about the creative life in general. I'm going to talk about my creative life, my life as an artist. Why? Self-indulgent, perhaps, maybe. But I was also thinking that one of the things that we all have of value is just ourselves. Our experience, our point of view, the things we've learned or thought about, and getting to know each other and understand each other, I think, is the antidote for all the things that are most distressing about being a human. You know, all of the intolerances and hatreds and anger and all that stuff. So much of that is alleviated with knowledge and understanding of each other and this world we live on. So it may seem sort of a silly thing just to extrapolate that out into, let me tell you about myself. But in a sense, isn't that what we're doing in social media all the time and have been for a while? Is we're just trying to show each other who we are. And overall, I think that is a good thing. So I'm going to talk about myself again today, which is not a big surprise. As you know, it's what I do a lot because of this. I feel like what I am experiencing has some interest and value. So most of you that are watching this, or I'm assuming anyway, have some interest in creativity and art. Many of you probably like to make things anywhere from, I want to do a little small jelly bean bunny for the cupcake for my granddaughter's birthday, all the way on up to installations at major events or whatever. You know, somewhere in that continuum you are, and you like to create. You know, as do I, and many of us have done that ever since we were kids. All of us as children, as humans, given the opportunity, will express ourselves creatively. Not everybody has that opportunity, and some people seem to have more of a proclivity or talent for that than others, and that's great. I mean, I can't play music. Multiple years of trying to be taught piano and even flute for some crazy reason in elementary school told me that although I appreciate music, I am not one of those ones from which it flows, which is fine because I can do other things with pencil and fingers and creativity and sculpture that some people can't do. You know, so we all have something, right? And I think finding that creativity and keeping it alive throughout your life is very valuable. So if any of you watching this have children, grandchildren, neighbors, anybody in your sphere of influence, and they show a proclivity towards creativity, and you have time, inclination, and means to encourage that, please do. We need to keep the creativity of our younger selves alive because it is a lifeline as we get older, I think, to sanity. I mean, you know, via the route of somewhat unhinged insanity that creativity is, but in a good way. But it does give us a way of escaping into something wonderful and productive when times are hard, and all of us have hard times. So what I wanted to do is just show you a little bit of my creative world. So what you're seeing right now is in front of me is my working space. So on this side I have a computer. In the middle here I have my way of getting the camera to be where I want it to be and can move it all around. And then to the left hand side is my actual workspace, my studio space. Just you know, it's not very much, 3 feet maybe at the most, of which about a foot is usable because the rest is storing things like a pasta machine for my polymer clay and lights and everything for the filming part. In front of that is drawers of clay. I mean, I'll flip this around and show it to you all in a minute, and tools and things. And then I have, for the rest of my space here, I have a bed in the corner with my little art gallery that I get to look at all the time. Behind me and to the side of me, to make up the rest of my small little room, is just shelves that all of the ingredients for my creativity and my little online store live. And of course I find little nooks and crannies throughout the rest of the house here. I live in an apartment or a condo with my brother in Maui, so it's a great place to be. And I thought I'd just tell you just a little bit of how I came to be in this space. But first, let's take a little look around, as I mentioned, so you can kind of have a point of reference to all the things that I just said. Okay, so I've turned my camera around and you can kind of see what I was talking about. Is like, here is the area that I work, and I've got a couple of not one of a kind, limited edition weirdlings that I'm working on right now, right here, which I'm about to bake in the oven and then go put up on my website. And you can see how I've got some of my orchids and things here, and this is the window behind me. The drapes are closed at the moment because it's early in the morning, and the sun is pretty bright. It's east facing, so has to wait till it gets past the building a little bit. But then over here begins my shelving units, and then this was the closet, which is now all shelves. And then over here you can kind of see the computer, my studio lights. If you're interested in like what I use, this thing that I'm using to hold my camera, what studio lights I use, things like that, in the description will be a link to my Amazon influencer page, and I have what I have used there in case you're curious there. But anyway, most of my pasta machine and stuff that I use for my art is there. And then this is what I was telling you about, like these are the drawers that house my clay and my powders. So you see how they're just all right in front of me, so that as I'm creating, I just reach and grab my clays and my powders. Everything is very handy. So it's a small space, but it's really effective, which I love. And this is behind me. There's more places where I store things and have some fun little knickknacks, and my little art gallery behind me, and just more stuff. You know, that's the cool thing about being an artist, is you got stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. We need the ingredients to create the things we create. So I have buckets and buckets and buckets full of those. And I love these little drawers and these little buckets, whatever works for you. I find that drawers are the easiest, because then I don't have to like pull something out from underneath something else. But I also use these little trays. Again, go to my Amazon influencer page. That studio betterments category will show you the things that I use if you're interested. But my bed's behind me. So it's a pretty small space, and everything is right here. But the good thing about having your bed right next to your workspace is that if you just suddenly get overwhelmed by the exhaustion of answering emails or whatnot, I can just roll over there and take a nap, which this has been the first period of my life, other than when I was a youngster and foolishly didn't want to take naps. This has been the first time in my life where regular nap taking is not only a possibility, but it's easy because of proximity. I recommend it. So as you can see, it's a small space, but it's chock full of all the things I need for my creativity, and some snacking too, which is important to me. And the place where I am, I love it, looking out that window and just having the view of the tree, and off the top of the rest of the condos in the unit, just seeing the clouds and Mount Haleakala is really inspirational and wonderful for me. And I love being surrounded by all my plants. I feel very connected and loved by all of their just quiet, happy energy. It's lovely. And the house, the condo itself is nice. It's comfortable. I have a roommate who is kind, supportive, and non-argumentative. That's a lovely thing. We have the food that we need. We have a little space in the backyard where we can sit and observe nature flitting in and out around the complex in front of us, but I can see a little bit of the ocean. There's lots of trees. It's a great place to be a creative, an artist. I've been here for the last 5 years. Yes, came in January of 2020. And previous to that, I had been traveling for a year after my breakup. And basically, when my marriage had run its course, as sometimes happens, I decided to run away for a year, knowingly that I just needed a bit of distance between me and what was going to come next. So since I already taught, and since I already had quite a number of international and country-wide items or places to go and teach, I just added a bunch more and just turned it into a whole year of traveling from one place to the next. So went to Japan and to Europe and to Australia and Tasmania and all across the USA. It was a very good thing to do for a year, and I'm very grateful for it. And then I touched down here to stay with my brother for a little while while I figured out what was next and where I was going to be. And then COVID hit, and here I've been. And actually, it's been a wonderful next step in my life. And many of you have been through these sort of transitions where things happened and changes occurred, whether it's to your health, to your marriage, to your family, career, any number of things, where things went in a different direction than you expected. And I think that's good, or it can yield good. It can sometimes be very traumatic, of course, but it leads you to the next thing. Now, I've always been artistic, as we talked about, from a young age. I think my first art lesson when I was I had my first art lesson when I was 3, an oil painting lesson, if you can believe that. But, you know, people saw in me a little bit more talent, perhaps, or proclivity towards creativity than the average kid. And so I've been encouraged in that way since that age. I've always had art supplies. I grew up in a part of the country that had a really strong art program in the schools, which was lovely. And I just was given sort of my own space to create. And it wasn't all, you know, paradise. There was issues and a lot of stuff, but you know, who doesn't have those? They make us who we are, right? You got to figure out what they are, be angry about them, cry a bunch, and then realize, okay, that's who I am. Which parts of that do I want to keep? And then move on. And I've been trying to do that. It's an interesting process, and many of you I know are going through that too. So hang in there. It's okay to cry, but then it's also okay to move on and just be you. So here I am. So now I'm here, and I think, well, this is an odd place to be for my little creative life. In the one hand, it's fantastic because all of the energy of this island is very conducive to growth, to calm, to creative impulses, all of which are fantastic if you're an artist, right? So I love that. But my personal circumstances are limiting in a way. I've got just this small space. I used to have a house and traveled all around and did a bunch of stuff, and I've kind of become a little bit more stuck in a place. Now, if you're going to be stuck in a place, here's a place. And stuck, I use that loosely because obviously I have flown back to Oregon and the Pacific Northwest to visit my children and grandchildren. So I am by no means in a bad way. It's great. But what this has all taught me is that if you can just adapt and find the creativity wherever you are, then living a creative life is not one of those things that, like, when I get a studio, then when I get the right supplies, then if I can just get 5 more, classes and stuff, then I'll know how to, we can feel that way, but it's not necessary. You just make wherever you are. And that's what my creative life has been. And it's very different from what my world has been. And it's been both easy to adjust, and also sometimes, you get down by what you had versus what you have. We all do that. Or what you would like. And that's okay too. But I think the biggest thing that I have learned, and I'm passing that on to all of you in case it's interesting, is that wherever you are is where you are. Whatever you're doing is the path you're on. Don't be looking for all the other ones. Obviously, you're always scanning where you are to make sure that you're not going to get yourself into danger, or you're not going to miss some interesting opportunity or vista to go look at or whatever. But and you want to plan what you would prefer in your future, but don't be too quick to discount where you are. I sometimes get sad about the fact that I don't see my grandkids as often or whatever, but I also then go, okay, Christi, look where you are. You get to go down to the ocean whenever you want. There's jungles and all those things that I love so much. You have this comfortable thing, reminding myself what is good. And we all should do that as much as we can. I think it just makes for a little bit more contentment. So always thinking about what could be better within the containment of what is already great. As a creative, I find that's very important, because if I'm in a good frame of mind, then it's easier for me to make things. Now, let's just talk about making things for a minute. Sometimes I worry. Now, this has been a fairly new worry. I am talking in this particular video in a particular time frame, the beginning of 2025. And things in the beginning of 2025 are not what they were. Now, this isn't, any kind of a political whatever. I'm not going down in that direction. Not that that's not valid and important that we do so. But for me, for right now, what I have created is I've created a universe where it's safe to come in and just be creative, and the other things of your life can be left behind, because you and I can share the joy of playing, which is a big part of creativity, the joy of connectedness, which is a big part of creativity, or it can be, the joy of self-expression and uniqueness, big part of creativity. All of those things, this is the place where we do that outside of what may be happening in our own world or the greater world around us. But it is sometimes difficult, since we're affected by all those things, to keep a frame of mind that will be conducive to creating. And also, sometimes I ask myself, and maybe you guys do this too, is like, is this really appropriate right now? If there's so many very big things that are happening, just me making, some little guy, here's a glow-in-the-dark guy with his magical powders, is that really appropriate, right? Should that be what I'm doing with my time? Why? And I have had to ask myself that, and I have answered that. For me, what I can share is a sense of joyful, I don't even want to say normalcy, because we're not normal, but joyful beingness. Like, I am going to create play, create joy, create even silliness, but it's going to be authentically my version of that. It's going to be unabashedly either silly, whimsical, or sublime, depending on which mood I'm in. And I'm going to share it with you guys, because there is never a time when that's not appropriate or good. Anybody who can create anything, music, dance, painting, sculptures, all of the arts, it's very appropriate. They are the part of being a human, I think, that is kind of one of the best things we do. Hopefully, because art is inclusive. Art helps us see each other. Art contains a message. In my case, a lot of times that message is just goof off, have fun. We're already adulting, things are rough, just go have some fun. But I do ask myself, and sometimes I think, what am I doing? Do you guys ever feel like that? And I do sometimes question if, me coming and saying, look at this, I found a piece of driftwood, and then I made a stand for it, and I'm going to put a face on it, Is that what I need to be doing right now? Is that my creative life? And under normal circumstances, that'd be like, yeah, of course it is. That's what I want to share. That's what people want to see. That's what we're doing together. But, sometimes if times are rough, you start questioning that. So I've had to question that, and will continue to do so. And my answer to myself recently is, it is a thing that I can do that helps when people are having a rough day for whatever reason. They can come over here and listen to my creative life and live vicariously for a few minutes in this space where I am, in this beautiful spot, in this snug and not over the top little space that is safe, that is creative, that is comfortable, that is cozy. And you can share that with me via this wonderful ability for us to transcend boundaries, and just for a moment or two or five, feel what I'm feeling, which is just the joy of creative play. So I had to ask myself that, and have had to ask myself that often, is what I'm doing useful? Not that being useful is, that's another one of those weird things, isn't it? That we have to be useful all the time and productive and all that stuff. And I kind of feel like, for me, it no longer resonates with me. Is all we have to do is be ourselves, and hopefully continue to examine the core of our individual being to be the best version of ourselves we can be, which can mean different things to different people. I know that's very wide open to interpretation, but I feel like art helps in that it forces you to take things that are inside yourself and put them out there and share, so you make those connections, and better yourself, because you have to use techniques and materials that require some discipline and some practice. And then the joy that comes when you are in the process. Sometimes it's a flow, sometimes it's a bit of work to make a thing that matches what you had in your brain and show it to the world. There's an interesting thing in all of that. And I do think that most of us would like to do that. So I'm not going to turn this into a commercial, but obviously that's one reason why I have my membership groups. I've mentioned the Creative Circle, and that is a small monthly fee to be part of the community that I put together that gets projects from me and gets weekly live chats and demos so that we can together have a continuous time for creativity. I think that's important, and if that sounds interesting to you, go check that out. My website link is in the description. But I also have tutorials, over 100 tutorials that will help you make a specific thing. And sometimes it's helpful. Sometimes it's nice to have the step-by-step and either download it and look at it or watch the video, depending on which thing it is, and make the thing. And then that sense of accomplishment, you're learning because you're guided, and then you have a sense of accomplishment because you've created a thing. But hopefully what it's doing in the broader sense is like leading you through the process of how to create, how to imagine what goes where. I try to incorporate that into all of my videos and all of my demos with my group. I feel like that's an important thing, and it's needed now more than ever. When we feel bombarded by difficulties, which is always going to happen in life, and perhaps now at an unprecedented rate, we have to find our center, we have to find our balance, and we have to find what keeps our battery charged. And that can be many things for different people, and I am certainly not advocating anything. You are going to find the one that works for you. But for me, it's living a creative life and sharing my creative life with everyone else. And that is everything from, look at this weird fruit that I'm eating, listen to these birds over here, and let's make a heart. All of those are part of what keeps my batteries charged and keeps me balanced. And it's been a long time in finding the balance and the charge, and I want to share it with you. And right now, the reason why I'm doing this sort of overly talkative, overly philosophical kind of video is I have been thinking about all of this a lot. Like, what is the point of anything, really? But what is the point of this? You know, what in this time, is this what I should be doing? Is this useful? Obviously, my business has changed rather drastically in this economic thing. Everybody is kind of like waiting to see what happens, whether that's with joy or whether it's with trepidation. Everyone is still in a sort of like what's going to happen kind of mode at this point. And you can stop doing the things that bring you joy when we get in that position, because we're kind of in that freeze or in that flight or whatever. Even, you know, no matter what our actual feelings may be, it's a time of like waiting to see. So my encouragement is always create for the sheer joy of creativity. And if you do not know what to do with the things you create, like let's say you've gone and you've got all kinds of videos that you've watched here on YouTube of mine or other people's, and you've bought some tutorials, or you've got projects because you're a member of my circle, and it's just like, what am I even going to do with any things? Make it and give it away. If you don't have a human to give it to that you already know would want it, leave it somewhere for somebody to find with a little note. I made this. If you'd like it, take it. If you know somebody else that would, give it to them. Enjoy. You know, do those kinds of things so that your creativity is always flowing out. That's what I'm doing in this stuff, is I'm doing this because this is the way I've chosen to actually fund my life. But I've chosen continuously, I've made the choices to do things that may not be as economically savvy, because it's important to me to spread the love of being a creative person. So that's what I'm going to do. So this was me rambling just about the stuff that's been on my mind, and I'm assuming it might be on yours as well. And also just a way of just talking out loud the things that I'm wondering about. So anyway, if you feel like it, drop me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking about what I've said or anything adjacent. Let me know if these kinds of things are helpful for you. If I'm sharing my creative life with you and that's cool, let me know. If there is a part of my creative life you'd like to see more of, let me know. I'm going to do whatever I want, but I like to know the things that are amusing to you, because if they also are amusing to me, then I'll do them. And it's nice to know. Like I said, I'm always led by what I feel. Day to day, upon constant reflection, is the best course of action given what I know. And I'm always open to trying to know more. This is the creative life. You always try to learn more. Happy creating.